again, and welcome back to Auntie Julie's Reading Room. So glad you could join me. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Read Aloud. Now, as we have already learned from previous videos, Read Aloud is the starting point in the English language framework within a balanced literacy classroom. Now we have Read Aloud and shared reading. Now oftentimes the structure of ELA plus the time doesn't really allow you to do both of them on the same day. But if there is a time where you have to choose which one to do, I would say base it on where you are in the school year. For the beginning of the school year, you have to choose based on time constraints. I would say choose the Read Aloud, because this is where you get to demonstrate what you are looking for from your emerging readers. So you being the proficient reader is going to demonstrate the fluency and observing the punctuation marks and raising and lowering of your voice to visualize or affect the tone of the text that you're reading. So if you have to choose in the beginning of the year, choose Read Aloud. For the latter part of the year, maybe like for the third term where you have to choose between Read Aloud and shared reading, I would opt to choose the shared reading, because by now students are able to or should be able to demonstrate those skills that you have been demonstrating. So they should be able to read aloud, and while they read, demonstrate that they are observing the punctuation mark to effect fluency and all that good stuff. Nonetheless, as opposed to at what point of the ELA framework you do a Read Aloud, I'm not going to say that it is written in stone, because it depends on the grade level and the needs of your student too. When it comes to the reading workshop, in the reading workshop itself, you may want to introduce a concept by doing a Read Aloud then, and not necessarily just doing Read Aloud separate and apart from the reading workshop. And I don't think fifth grade does so much Read Aloud per se. So it depends on the grade and again the needs of your student and the flow of your lesson. For me, oftentimes I might mix it up. Sometimes the Read Aloud come after the shared reading, or I don't have any Read Aloud. I just do shared reading today, right? And then continue with the Read Aloud when I am introduced in my concept in the mini lesson, as I said before. Nonetheless, today we're going to be doing a Read Aloud. And as we do that, I want us to bear in mind that the purpose of the Read Aloud is to demonstrate our proficient reader navigate a text. Now, during this time, the teacher ensures that the students are actually listening and observing as she demonstrates. During this time also, we try to incorporate conversation into the text, getting them to think, also bringing out literal and inferential thinking. Stick a pin right there. Remember that literal is what you see right in front of your face. Inferential is what you infer based on what information you have. So Read Aloud is solely, well, I wouldn't say solely, it's mostly based on helping students to develop literal and inferential questioning, as well as how to ask them, how to respond to them. So you want to be asking those questions and ensuring that students respond to you in a way that would satisfy those questions, which will efficiently develop those skills. So now, before you do your Read Aloud, you must get your students to understand what inferential questions are as opposed to literal questions, because Read Aloud is mostly based on them responding to such questions. So literal questions are questions that ask you to respond to what you can see. Exactly that, what you can see, whether it's a picture or a text. The inferential question is asking you to infer the information, meaning that you can't literally see it's there, but you have to read between the lines to figure out what the answer is. So if I'm getting my text, I would introduce it like this. Well, class, guess what? I have an exciting book that we're going to read today. Look at it. What's the title of the text? They would say, Better Than You. Okay, what else can you see? And they'll tell me they see the Ball, the boy holding the ball, and the boy looking sad. Okay. Why do you think the boy is looking sad? Maybe he doesn't know how to shoot, that kind of thing. So first you ask them literal questions, then you build onto that to get inferential question. Okay, so what do you think the story is going to be about? And they probably say about a boy shooting basketball. Okay, then let's find out. So when the story is not exciting, you have to act exciting, you know? All right, so here we go. All right, we're all listening. Let's go. My neighbor Jake can be a real jerk, always letting me know that whatever I do, he can do better. Don't get me wrong, Jake is great at practically everything he does, especially sports. Me, not so much. I mean, I know I am good at writing stories and playing the guitar, but when it comes to basketball, I have to practice a lot just to be a decent player. You show them the picture. Okay, based on what we just read, who is Jake? Wait a minute. Who is Jake in the story? And of course, they would think that Jake is the one holding the basketball based on what was read, right? And who is the boy who's speaking in the text? So, how do you think the boy feels about Jake? You know, questions like that. All right, let's find out. The jerky side of Jake first started to bug me when I was trying to learn how to do a layup. For weeks, I'd been working on leaping, aiming, and shooting like an NBA star. I even got my older brother Iggy's help. I was so excited when I could finally do it that I went over to Jake's house to show him. "Hey Tyler, what's up?" said Jake. "Check this out. I can do a layup." After I showed him the move, he grabbed the basketball from me and said, "Yeah, well, I bet you can't do this." Then Jake did a perfect hook shot. He couldn't say, "Cool, Tyler," or "Great job, you nailed it." Nope. He had to outdo me. Who am I kidding, I thought. I'll never be great at basketball. Why even bother? You show them the picture. Now, if you're doing a read aloud, as much as you have practiced it to be fluent, if you make a mistake, it's okay. This is the time you point out to the students that if they're reading and they mess up, whether it's the tone or the fluency, it's always good to stop and go back and do it correctly. Don't just jump over it, because jumping over it may affect them. Well, it will affect them later when it comes to comprehension, right? If you don't get the fluency right or understand the text right, then when it comes to comprehension, it will be a problem. And of course, you could ask them questions like, what do you think is going to happen now? What do you think about Jake? What kind of person is Jake? What kind of character is he? So we'll continue. Now, last Tuesday morning, I was in the middle of showing Charisse my new music player when Jake came over. "What's that?" he asked. "It's a sound launch," replied Charisse. "Tyler just bought it." "You're kidding. A sound launch? You should have gotten a Tunage 300, said Jake. Then he went on about all the great things his music player could do that mine couldn't. I just stood there thinking of all the places I'd rather be than right here with Jake. How do you think Tyler feels about Jake? They could say maybe he's annoyed. You'd ask, how do you know? Right? And of course they would say, because he said he'd rather be any other place than there with Jake. Today we had a math test. I hate math. It's my hardest subject. My hands get all sweaty and my brain turns to mush whenever I try to solve the problems. Do you want to know what was worse than taking that test? Having the teacher tell you that the kid to your right would be grading it. And since I sat next to Jake, he got to check my answers. "Jeez, Tyler, I can't believe you got some of these problems wrong," he said. "This test was so easy. I must be like 5 times smarter than you in math." There should be a law that kids don't get to grade each other's test. Stupid test. Stupid me. You could ask questions like, how is Tyler feeling at this point? Why? And if you wanted to relate to their everyday experience, you could say, have you ever had a friend like this or sat beside someone like this? In class, this is third grade. You've been through kindergarten up to second grade up to now. Have you ever had that experience? How did you feel? If you were in this position as Jake, what would you do differently? You know, you could ask them all questions like that. When I came home from school, I threw down my backpack, headed to my room, and slammed the door. Hey, Tyler, called Iggy from downstairs. Uncle Kevin's here. When I didn't go say hi to Uncle Kevin, he came upstairs. Why are you holed up in your room? He asked. I didn't say anything. I just kept tossing my basketball up in the air. You know, Tyler, one of my favorite ways to get rid of blues is to play them, he told me. And here we have a picture. There we go. You could ask them questions like, what do you think Uncle means when he says get rid of your blues is to play them, right? Because it could have more than one meaning. Play basketball, play the guitar. What do you think? Uncle Kevin was right. Playing the guitar did help me feel better, but it still didn't solve my problem with Jake. There we have a word, strumming. They were strumming away. What do you think that means? Of course, strumming has to do with how you string the guitar, right? Show them the picture. If they didn't understand strumming within context, then the picture should bring out some of that meaning, you know. After a while, Uncle Kevin asked, did you have a tough day at school? More like a tough month, I grumbled. My friend Jake's been getting on my nerves a lot lately. I know he's better than me at a bunch of stuff, but he doesn't have to rub it in my face all the time. I feel like such a loser when I'm around him. Uncle Kevin nodded as he strummed some more chords. Is Jake like this around you with other friends too? I thought about it for a minute. I remembered hearing Carlos tell Oscar at basketball practice that he was sick of Jake's bragging. He thinks he's better than us, Carlos said. Yeah, what a show off, agreed Oscar. So it wasn't only me that Jake treated this way. The other guys were getting fed up with him too. Maybe it wasn't my fault after all. Maybe it had been more to do with him than with me. There's a food for thought. What do you think? Good. Now remember that a read aloud is about 8 to 10 minutes, I'd say. So at this point, you may not get to finish all of the text. So a good point to stop at is, okay, what do you think is going to happen next? Now that Tyler realizes that Jake is that way with everybody else, right? Now this would spark some conversation, right? And people can share their experience as well as their thought and predict what's going to happen next. Now, when you continue the story tomorrow or whenever you can, hopefully at least the other day, then they can get to prove their predictions, you know, and that is also another reading strategy. So this takes us to the end of our session. And of course, the students will say, oh, can't we just read all of it? But if we do read all of it, we're going to miss shared reading time, right? And we have to get that done. So this is where we end our read aloud. I hope you get the general idea, and I hope that my demonstration will help you to be a little bit clearer as to how to conduct a read aloud. Once again, thank you for joining me. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Take care, and to my Jamaican friends, walk good.